listeners and subscribers. Hope all is well. So I've talked about this before in the past on my channel, but really I wanted to dive down into this a little bit deeper, and go into it a little bit more. I was thinking about doing a upload once a week that is a little more full length, if you will, like 20 minutes or more, or in that neighborhood. And I wanted to keep most of my videos under 10 minutes because I know, the attention span, but eventually I do want to take this content and expand it to be something a little bit longer. So go ahead and fasten your seatbelts, right? So I've showed this before. I've showed when I was talking about fluoride in our drinking water and things, because what we're talking about when we're talking about a depopulation agenda is the four major things that are included in this. That is food, air, water, and medicine. Okay, and we'll get into those. I'll try to be as brief as I can. But really, what we're talking about, this shows the fluoride, how it has had a significant role in the insect control industry since about 1896, okay? And these are just a couple of patents on fluoride rat poison and insecticides. One of the examples of that is Sweeney's sodium fluoride roach killer. Kills cockroaches, crickets, water bugs, and silverfish. And here we have the product registration number and what it's used for, insecticide, and a percentage by mass, 40% sodium fluoride. So this just shows you what it is, and they have other examples of that. And what I'm getting at is this sodium fluoride. It has let's get into what it is, right? At least according to Wikipedia. Sodium fluoride is an inorganic compound with the formula NaF. It is a colorless or white solid that is readily soluble in water. It is a common source of fluoride in the production of pharmaceuticals and is used to prevent cavities, right? Right here, because it says one of the uses is fluoride salts are often added to municipal drinking water as well as certain food products in some countries, for the purpose of maintaining dental health, right? It says that fluoride enhances the strength of teeth by formation of fluoropitate. I'm probably, butchering that, right? So looking down here, the other uses it has, it says sodium fluoride is used as a cleaning agent. Sodium fluoride is used as a stomach poison for plant-feeding insects. That goes back into the insecticide. The safety here says fluorides, particularly aqueous solutions of sodium fluoride, are rapidly and quite extensively absorbed by the human body. Fluorides interfere with the electron transport and calcium metabolism. Calcium is essential for maintaining cardiac membrane potentials and in regulating coagulation. It also goes on to talk about other side effects here, but I think it's very interesting that in the same page it talks about fluoride salts being added to drinking water in some countries, and the United States is one of them. It talks about the safety consequences right down here on the same page. It's very interesting, especially when we go and talk about how it was used to be used as an insecticide. So why would it be used in our drinking water? Yet they tell us right here, fluoride in water is safe and it works. More than 70 years of scientific research have consistently shown that an optimal level of fluoride in community water is safe and effective in preventing tooth decay by at least 25% in both children and adults. Okay, so simply by drinking water, Americans can benefit from fluoride's cavity protection, whether they are at home, work, or school. You see how they try to sell this? Yet on the back of your toothpaste, if you turn it around, it says sodium fluoride. So keep out of reach of children. If more than used for brushing is accidentally swallowed, get medical help or contact a poison control center right away. That's absolutely incredible. So here you have right on the back of your toothpaste, because most toothpastes contain sodium fluoride. It tells you right on the back there to don't swallow this stuff. If more than used for brushing is swallowed, get medical help or contact a poison control center right away. That's because this used to be poison for, you've got this for roaches. It was used for poultry lice as well. It had many uses, but none of them were beneficial. So now they've said that we have it in our drinking water and it's safe and it works. At least that's what 70 years of scientific research has consistently shown, so we can't argue with that. So moving on from what's in our water, at least concerning fluoride for now, we have what is in our air, right? And I was making the point in a video previous. If you've been following this channel, then you know I've talked about geoengineering before, and how people talk about climate change and global warming, but they don't often include the subject of geoengineering in their conversations, which you would think they would, which you think would be there, because it's one of those big question marks that even the scientists who are involved in doing these experiments and, you know, on the cutting edge of this technology, the bleeding edge, if you will, supposedly this stuff has been going on for a long time, but they say it's being implemented now in these scientific ways. How can you talk about, you know, climate change and global warming without considering the effects of geoengineering? And this is just right here from, you know, Harvard's Solar Geoengineering Research Program. They talk about what is geoengineering. Geoengineering refers to a set of emerging technologies that can manipulate the environment and partially offset some of the impacts of climate change, right? And some of the ways that this is done is not just Harvard, but you have this Weather Modification Incorporated, where they talk about cloud seeding. And cloud seeding is just one of many ways that they've been using geoengineering methods, weather manipulation, to or weather modification to control or try to promote certain atmospheric conditions, right? In this case, it's trying to increase the precipitation of clouds. Here we have solar radiation management, which is just another form of this climate engineering, which is trying to, you know, curb the effects of global warming. And one of the proposed methods of doing that is by using aerosols and other methods to inject those chemicals and heavy metals into the atmosphere in order to either reflect the sun's light back at it and cause a global dimming effect, or to promote precipitation in arid climates where you're seeing, I don't know, California, where they've been in a drought, right? So that's another one. And stratospheric aerosol injections. And I'm going through this really briefly, because I'll leave links in the description for you to check out on your own, because I can tell you what the research I've done and the conclusions I've come to, but that's really more for you to do. I'm just giving you the tools to make that more available. So stratospheric aerosol injection, I'm giving you the names that these programs go by so you can do the research and ask yourself, what are the potential side effects of these? Because, you know, scientists don't exactly have this 100% figured out. And this is just one avenue, right? The geoengineering. But another one is this is a study from the USGS, right? The U.S. Geological Survey. And they found glyphosate, the herbicide found in many Midwestern streams. Antibiotics not common. In some areas they are pharmaceuticals. Some areas there's not as common. But what had happened is researchers with the U.S. Geological Survey recently investigated 51 streams in 9 Midwestern states to determine the presence of a wide range of herbicides and their degradation byproducts in antibiotics. Herbicides were detected in most water samples, which were collected to coincide with runoff events following herbicide applications, but antibiotics were detected in only 1% of the samples. Okay, so what is glyphosate, right? Glyphosate, because this is what they found in most of these Midwestern streams. Glyphosate, trade names include Roundup, Touchdown, Rodeo, and others, is an organic solid of odorless white crystals. It is a non-selective herbicide used on many foods and non-food crops, as well as non-crop areas such as roadsides. So this stuff is everywhere. This is what they're out there spraying on the road to try to keep down, weeds and other invasive species of plants. What was found? A total of 154 water samples were collected during the 2002 study in 9 Midwestern states. So 9 states here. A total of 154 water samples were collected during the 2002 study in 9 Midwestern states. Glyphosate was detected in 36% of the samples, while its degradation products, something I'm not going to try to pronounce, was detected in 69% of the samples. The highest measured concentration of glyphosate was 8.7 micrograms per liter, well below the MCL 700 micrograms per liter, right? So this is what it's just going to show. Now, these are some of the dangers that glyphosate can pose to the human body. At least this is one of the studies, right? In this abstract, it explains, glyphosate, most commonly known here to people as Roundup. It's a herbicide that's used worldwide, okay? And the industry touts how it's not toxic to it's not toxic to humans, but many independent studies and scientific research is beginning to reveal that it actually does have side effects that we do not want, right? So example, common weed killer glyphosate increases cancer risk by 41%, study says. And this is just from February 14th, 2019. And I'll leave links in the description, and it includes everything here from the analysis and the draft risk assessment that was produced by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in 2017. That is this thing right here, talking about glyphosate. So glyphosate does not have a good reputation, and the thing is this is when you're driving. I used to live in California, and I did work out in Northern California as well, in the Chico Paradise areas. Now the Paradise is leveled by the fires, but they have plenty of farmland and crops out there, and they would come, they'd spray their crops with their crop dusters, and I'd have to drive through that in my van and everything. But I'd get they get real close, and the thing is there's aqueducts, the aqueducts that run from through Paradise and down through, oh boy, what is it, Butte and everything down towards Sacramento. That is open water. Those water sources are open there, and I mean, especially up there carried by the dam. That's open water sources, and it's absolutely exposed to these crop dusters, which are spraying, glyphosates, pesticides, and herbicides, keep the bugs off their plants, keep the weeds away from the crops, right? And they're showing up, and now it's saying the Environmental Protection Agency and other agencies, independent studies are saying, well, this stuff is not good for you. It's not healthy. So you have this multifaceted assault, right? Your water supply, and fluoride is just one element, right? They have what do they do? This chlorine that's in the water, right, to purify it. Chlorine has been shown that in some studies that it can turn cholesterol into plaque, and the number one leading cause of death in America, right? We've got cancer, or heart disease and cancer, and then the third leading cause of disease right behind that supposedly is the American medical system, and we'll get into that. Right, so medical errors rank behind heart disease and cancer as the third leading cause of death in the United States, and that's according to Johns Hopkins research. So we have heart disease being the number one here, and the chlorine in our drinking water, could that be converting our especially since we have a very high fat diet, could that be converting cholesterol into plaque and laying down plaque in arteries and have anything to do with that? Some research suggests that. But again, medical errors ranking, third, and this is according to Johns Hopkins, and there's other issues as well on how you want to rank this and scale this, but it just doesn't bode well, because you're talking about when you do get sick, right, from drinking water, and this stuff is, again, fluoride isn't, I've said it before, fluoride isn't something that's going to kill you outright all at once. Drinking doesn't do that. Smoking doesn't do that. It's accumulative. And, by the time you're, however many years you've been consuming this, and it starts to have its degrading effects on you, now you go to the for-profit medical systems, or, the medical system, where they get away from treating the illness, and they're just treating the symptoms almost. But just looking into this, it's just, it's an assault on all fronts. And then the food, lastly, we were talking about water, we're talking about air, we're talking about medicine, and now we're talking about food. And this is where it gets kind of touchy, because the number one thing people will talk about, at least the majority of the conversations that are had out there in the realms when we're discussing food, is GMOs, okay, and artificial flavors and artificial colors. Now, GMOs, when you have Monsanto and all these biotech industries getting involved with food, it's a bad deal, right? But because of the lobbying power of some of these corporations and companies and businesses, it's very difficult, or it can be very difficult, to discern, fact from fiction when we're doing, research and studies, or when you're going out there to try to find them, because a lot of the research and studies that you'll look at, they have, their scientists and their, group of individuals who go to make sure that the image of these companies aren't tainted. So again, I think the best way to put this is you're going to have to do your own research and come to your own conclusions when you're looking at something like genetically modified food. If you're looking at something like artificial flavors, now if you look for the dangers, you will find the dangers, okay? But try to look at the studies and what studies are based on, because sometimes you'll have some information on your news sites or your something that'll pop up on Google, and it'll all be based on the same study. There might be 2 or 3 studies that were done, and they're all loosely talking about the same thing, and basically reciting, rephrasing some of the key points in those articles or those studies. So what you have to do is you have to be very careful when you're approaching these foods. I could tell you about some of the research of the artificial flavors dangers and some of the side effects of the artificial colors that it has on children, and some of the most harmful ones. A lot of people look at the red food coloring and the yellow food coloring, I believe it is. These are things you're going to have to do on your own. Again, I'm just trying to give you the tools to make that necessary, because any of your health professionals, your fitness professionals, they wouldn't recommend a diet filled with artificial colors or artificial flavors. And while they will say in moderation, it may not have any adverse health effects, the thing is people aren't just having a bag of chips. Or a bag of artificially flavored chips, right? Their buns are artificially flavored. Their hot dogs are genetically modified. Then they go and have their sugar, their soda, right? And then this is just there's so many things out there. It's compounding. So you're not just getting it one meal a day. If you're picking your food up and you're not being wise and turning over the back of those labels and finding out what's in it, you're being exposed to this in more ways than one, right? You may say that you don't drink tap water, but does the companies that process your food use tap water? Do the companies who use to make your soda, because soda is just a concentrate in water nowadays anyway, do they use tap water, fluoridated tap water? How many companies have been actually the water bottle companies like Arrowhead and what was the other one? Crystal Geyser, I think it is, that were exposed for basically just using city water. Okay, this stuff, it's real. You're being exposed to it in more ways than one, and just the best way is not to try to avoid it altogether, but to educate yourself, and hopefully just by knowing that these threats are out there, or knowing that they have potential side effects to your food, your water, and your air, just being cognizant of it can help you avoid some of these things. Not all of them, but some of them. I hope I've been able to articulate what's going on here, because it's a multifaceted agenda, really, when you're looking at it. And when you look at the corporations and the businesses, and they all go to the same schools, the same institution. They're similar elite schools, similar institutions. They're being taught similar things. They go to the same training programs, right? So they learn how to manage their companies and businesses the same way, which is why you see this almost ubiquitous effect across, whether you're in law enforcement, retail, or insurance. You see this ubiquity about how things are run, where companies are either cutting corners or cutting costs, and that manifests in different ways. But really, you're seeing this transition happening in the work world, and all not just in the work world or in the business world, but across multifacets. And you've got to wonder, in some way, is this not a concerted effort, right, by the powers that be? Because when you start to look at these businesses, again, they're all taught similar the same way, running things in similar ways. At the very top, there's only a few people that are controlling any of this or have the power to promote any of these kind of initiatives and campaigns in the first place. Because why would, and a lot of these chemicals and things are banned in other countries. So there's some artificial flavors and artificial colors that are banned in other countries that we still use. Some countries don't do water fluoridation at all. Okay, and there are some places in the United States now that are trying to get rid of their water fluoridation. All that to say, we could question whether or not that this is a concerted effort, or we could just try to clean up our acts and try to educate ourselves to make sure we aren't as readily exposed to this stuff in the first place, because many people don't know about water fluoridation. Many people don't know about fluoride in their toothpaste or the side effects of it. Many people don't know about glyphosate and how that shows up in their water and in their air samples. If you educate yourself, you become aware, you have a better chance of being able to fight back against some of this, or reduce your exposure, most importantly. Anyway, I think I've dragged this on long enough. California Carter, signing off.